Hello and welcome back to the HellCastle and Furry E-Boy tier list channel. This is what zero content does to an MF. Our original guide about every single bow is arguably the video that properly launched our channel to the point it's at today, and had always had a special place on our channel. Which is precisely why neither of us played Archer in dungeons and called it useless for several months. There are only 20 bows in the game, which means I don't have to skip over any of them. Much joy of everybody who likes to learn about bows in cube-related video games. It's kinda hard to judge bows, as they have no real place in the meta, but for the sake of ranking them, let's just assume there are actually enemies that can be killed with a bow at every stage of the game. Hey, I just realized something. If every single person that watches our videos subscribes right now, then we could reach 100k subs in a day. That's crazy, right? So make sure you subscribe right now to be in under 93,339 subs gang, because random number equals funny. Okay, back to the video. Now, could I actually start a video about bows without talking about the bow? The bow is good, because it bows. It can also arrow. This bow is literally cheaper than the arrows you can buy for it, and to buy even 24 arrows with a bow, you can get the much more effective undead sword. But hey, it's the default bow, like what did you expect? A bow that doesn't get a free pass for being a default weapon is the wither bow. This bow's one use is dealing more damage to an enemy that spawns in a completely optional area, and I don't think taking Necron down with one of these is really what it's made for. F. The Savannah Bow is a really underappreciated weapon actually. Its double damage ability is better than it looks. Not only does it double the 50 damage on the bow, but it also counts as doubling your strength, crit damage, and any other stats that affect the damage in the final damage calculation, which means it truly doubles your damage, and not just 100 base. B. The Prismarine Bow's one job is doing 4 times damage to the Professor's Elder Guardians, and that is all. It doesn't even do that very well either. D. The Ender Bow's ability sounds good on paper until you realize its damage is capped at 1000 and its cooldown is a whole 45 seconds. This goes into the E tier, which is short for Ender Bow. The Machine Gun Bow and its randomized stats are purely a distraction, distracting you from the fact that it would be more effective to whack an enemy over the head with the sticks the weapon was made out of than to actually use this thing's ability. The only thing that stops it from being an F tier weapon is that it makes a really fun challenge to try and complete the Blaze puzzle with its ability. It's an even bigger challenge to try and stay in your party after trying this trick in a real dungeon. E. The Soul Stealer Bow is a magic weapon pretending to be a bow. There are no redeeming qualities. You can't even delete people's items or ruin their fishing experience anymore. F. Explosive Bow used to be a good way to bully people trying to farm zealots in the end, but has recently been outclassed by magic weapons in terms of annoyingness. Plus, the whole idea that a person would farm zealots in 2021 is really enough cause for bullying anyway. However, as a weapon, it's actually pretty competent, and for summoning slayers, it can be quite effective, especially in the Holy Caves. Therefore, I think it deserves a B tier. Magma Bow is hot, in more ways than one. It's a much upgraded version of the Savannah Bow, and is the highest damage a single arrow can deal in the game, which is abused in dragon fights as a pre-fire to almost one-hit it. It's not interesting, it isn't special or unique, but it's good at what it does, and that is deserving of our first S tier today, especially so because of how cheap it is. Slimebow. What are you? Who made you? Will you ever have a use? For now, no. F. The Scorpion Bow's ability is pretty cool. It's like a Phoenix pet, but it's a bow, and you need to fully charge your bow and stand still to activate it. Kinda impractical, but someone might find a use for it. C. The Hurricane Bow proudly proclaims that you can unlock its full potential by killing 250 enemies with it, making it sound like it doesn't take about 5 minutes to do that. Its spread of 5 arrows have had their uses through time, but do not anymore due to the bow crit nerf. It does, however, have its uses in summoning Slayer bosses just like the Explosive Bow, This bow gets an A tier because its arrows do not explode like the explosive bow and can home in on enemies and pierce them. The Endstone bow was made to give the Endstone sword a friend, and doesn't seem like it was made for a serious weapon. It gets a pass because you can get it really cheap on the auction house, and use its low price and high damage as a way to kill dangerous enemies like Crypt Ghouls for combat XP super early on. For this alone, it gets a C tier, but only because the auction house breaks progression. I love the death bow. I'd trust this thing to look after my kids, my house, anything really. Its damage stat is the highest in the game for any real bow, and the fact that it does double damage to undead is just the gold-coated cherry on the cake. Its secondary ability makes arrows bounce between nearby enemies, and those enemies don't even need to be undead. It works anywhere, and it's super nice for grinding things like the Ice Walkers with extreme ease, and it's only like 5 million coins to buy, and is never going to get more expensive. S tier. Runan's bow is easily the most recognizable bow on the server. It seems like everybody has one, and for good reason. All 3 arrows home in on enemies, which means it's the ultimate Slayer summoning weapon, with the extra arrows doing enough damage that the bow becomes viable for use in basically every situation too. Its cheap price and versatility are enough to put this weapon firmly in the S tier too. When admins get bored and are locked into a room with a random number generator, what do they create? The ability on the Mosquito Bow. This bow is outclassed on damage by the Death Bow, which is also cheaper, and doesn't rely on abilities to be good. At least it can heal you, I guess. C. Spirit Bow is just a bow with stats and a bonus ability. It's not special, but for its point in dungeons progressions, it's also really good. I'm saying B tier, because its viability outside of dungeons is overshadowed by the Magma Bow's affordability and the Runan Bow's versatility. The Last Breath as a weapon is poorly named, as it's usually the first weapon you want to use against an enemy to lower its defense and never touch it again. There is no use for this weapon in reality, as the time it takes to fire 2 shots into anything is usually enough to just outright kill it. But the concept has some future-proof potential. C. The Bone Morant sure does a lot of damage. It's already a ranged warped aspect of the end, which then deals double damage on its way back because it wasn't strong enough. You can also use 4 of them at a time for quadruple the damage, and then the Overload enchant has a chance to further increase any damage you deal by 50%. This weapon is an insult to balancing, to be honest. There's a reason it costs an entire house mortgage to buy, and its only slight letdown is that the range isn't huge, which doesn't really hold the weapon back at all. S tier. Do you disagree with my list? Please write a letter to 69 I don't care lane and put it through the little door that says trash, because that's what your opinion is. I'm just kidding. You're awesome. Have a great day, and also, please balance bows, Hypixel. See ya!